By the time searchers found the final footsteps, the tracks vanished beneath the mist, just like the missing. Content warning. This story involves mysterious disappearances and references to potential danger on abandoned railways, but contains no graphic violence or imagery. Viewer discretion is advised. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a forgotten clearing deep in the forests of rural Nova Scotia. The air smells of rain and rust. At your feet, twin iron lines disappear into tangles of wild ferns and brambles, half swallowed by the land. These are the rails of the Dominion Atlantic Line, once the heartbeat of local trade, now a corridor of silence. It's 2022, and 6 people connected to these tracks have vanished since 1978. Not a single body's been recovered. But before your mind leaps to the paranormal, let's pull back the curtain. This isn't just an accident-prone stretch of railway. The disappearances share uncanny common threads, and even the most skeptical investigators have quietly confessed their doubts. Still, for locals, it's not about ghosts or monsters, but about something far stranger. The chilling realization that something can happen again and again and still remain unsolved.
She never would have gone off alone.
That's what the mother of Rosemary Parker told RCMP outside Kentville Hospital in November of 1978, her hands trembling even after 3 hours of questioning. Rosemary, a 19-year-old college student from Wolfville, had set out the afternoon before, saying she wanted to photograph the old train bridges spanning the Gaspereau River. When she failed to return and her bicycle was found abandoned by the trestle, her family's world split open. Within 3 years, another 2 names are etched into local memory. Edric Faulkner, a retired postmaster and avid forager, and Benji Lamb, a visiting American geology student, both last seen within spitting distance of the very same stretch of track. To really understand what makes these disappearances so haunting, you need to know the bones of this place. The Dominion Atlantic Line once connected Yarmouth to Halifax, cleaving Nova Scotia's lush Annapolis Valley in two. For over a century, it was a lifeline, transporting apple barrels, passengers, and wartime secret messages alike. But by 1970, the trains ran rarely, then not at all. Sections were choked by moss, rails yanked up and sold for scrap. Still, rails meant opportunity, shortcutting for hikers, nighttime mischief for teens, and maybe a silent witness to stories the land would rather keep. Locals call this swath, from Kentville to Gaspereau, the Mile of Memory. Even the name feels loaded. Some say it was the best spot for wild blueberries. Others whisper it's where you go to lose yourself. In winter, wind shrieks across the open fields. In summer, every bush conceals birds or, if you believe local legend, borrowed secrets. So when Rosemary Parker, camera always at her hip, set out to snap the crimson maples reflected in the Gaspereau, it seemed almost wholesome. It was routine, just another afternoon. Except, she didn't come home. Let's stand in Rosemary's shoes for a moment. She's a sophomore at Acadia University, majoring in environmental studies. Curious, stubborn, and an outsider, having moved from Ontario just a year earlier. She'd made it her mission to document every secret spot in the valley. Her purple Schwinn bike, second-hand but beloved, creaked as she wheeled it down the gravel service road alongside the railway. Camera around her neck, sweater sleeves rolled up like always. It's late afternoon, 5:12 p.m. if you trust her last text to a friend. Several witnesses saw her on the bridge, nothing unusual. She waved and smiled. A friend's dog barked at something in the brush, but nobody thought much of it. By 6, dusk is falling. The bridge is shrouded in violet mist known to roll off the river each autumn. When her mother calls her phone, it rings out. At 7:30, her bike is found, leaned against the rusty post where the disused signal box stands. Her camera strap, mud-streaked, lies coiled nearby. RCMP comb the shore, no sign of a body, no sign of a struggle, if you believe the police. But Rosemary's notebooks, always filled with careful field sketches, are missing. There's no forced entry to anything, no sign she planned to run away. Her parents are devastated.
She had plans for the weekend, plans she never broke.
Her mother states in an early interview. It's tempting to write off a single disappearance as chance, or as the wild claiming its due. But fate, if you believe in it, is a collector. In the spring of 1980, Edric Faulkner, a retired postman famous for mushroom foraging, sets off for his usual afternoon walk south along the rails. Like Rosemary, he's known locally, a fixture at the post office socials, sometimes gruff but always dependable. Friends recall his, quote, luck. He always found the first morels of the season. On April 14th, Edric leaves a note for his wife, gone for the bridge, back for stew. 6 hours later, neighbors see his old wool cap tangled in a blackberry bush just off the rails, about a kilometer from the Parker Bridge. His foraging basket, empty, lies beside it. No footprints, no blood, no body. When RCMP search dogs descend on the area, they whine and refuse to cross the rails at certain points. An officer reports an unusual silence, like birds gone mute. This last detail is disputed by later investigators. Benji Lamb, the visiting Amherst geology student, is last seen photographing glacial outcrops along the rails. His rental car is eventually found with the keys in the ignition, door wide open. Maps are spread across the passenger seat, marked with cryptic notations. Ghost Spur, Resonance Stone. His disappearance is listed as presumed lost in the woods. But his friends report he left his gear, a habit he always mocked as diabolically unscientific. Ask anyone in Kentville about the railway, and you'll summon whispers.
It's not the woods that'll get you. It's the tracks,
says an old-timer, Doug Curtis, who's lived along the line his whole life. He maintains the first vanishing wasn't the first, just the first people noticed.
When I was a kid in the 50s, the milkman's horse turned up, headless, but the cart, full of bottles, was left right by that bridge.
You'd expect these stories to seize media attention. After all, 3 disappearances in 10 years is rare anywhere, let alone a rural county with only a handful of missing persons each decade. But something else grabs the headlines in the 80s. Mill closures, fisheries collapse, new commuter lines flooding the province. A few determined reporters, Anne-Marie Surrett, a freelancer with the Halifax Chronicle-Herald, among them, try to dig deeper. Her notebooks from 1984 detail conversations with witnesses, family members, and local police. In one chilling entry she writes,
all 3 disappeared had either crossed, followed, or stopped by the bridge. Locals say don't walk the tracks after sundown. I asked why. No answers, just silence.
Decades pass. The rail line feels almost fossilized, rails buried by creeper vines, the bridge sagging with rust. But in 1999, the pattern stirs again. Case 4. Dion DJ Hillier, age 21. A backpacker from Moncton, last seen traveling the rail corridor with friends. She's separated after dark while photographing graffiti beneath the bridge. Friends hear a high-pitched melicate hum. She's never seen again. Graffiti she just photographed is fresh. Her camera is never found. Case 5. Stephen Amos, age 53. Retired teacher and amateur historian. Disappears in 2016 while mapping old telegraph posts along the same stretch. Case 6. Liam McKay, age 17. In 2022, vanishes during a storm after a dare to walk the entire Phantom Mile. Friends find only his shoes, placed together on the rails, and a single torn notebook page that simply reads, "I saw the light." 6 disappearances, 44 years. Each case, RCMP state there's no evidence of foul play, no credible sightings, no recovered remains. Recommendations are quietly made to reroute new hikers away from the section, but no public warnings are posted. Privately, officers still shudder when called to the Gaspereau rail. Imagine, truly imagine, you're the sibling, parent, or partner of someone who simply went for a walk and never returned. Generations of families are left hovering between grief and hope, annual birthdays marked by unopened cards and silent candles. Rosemary's mother, who kept her daughter's bedroom untouched for decades, once told Surette in an interview,
Sad. I keep expecting the doorbell, a letter, anything. Instead, the nights just get quieter.
The missing 6 are joined by a multitude of others, lonely hikers, transient workers, even in one rumored case, a search dog that failed to return. But those are stories for another day. Let's not sugarcoat it. Official files, obtained via Freedom of Information requests by Surette and later CBC reporters, paint a portrait of confusion, not cover-up. Search grids mapped for miles revealed no significant forensic evidence. Canine units alternately eager, then fearful to cross the bridges. One file notes, rail corridor observed to have unusual flora regrowth at disappearance site, sampled and inconclusive. Attempts at closure seem impossible. Even now, skeptical detectives admit these are not routine vanishings. There are no ransom notes, no signs of river flooding or wildlife attack. Not a single investigator whose work the mile of memory comes away unchanged. What connects them? The rails, the bridge, and a profound sense that something in this pocket of Nova Scotia simply does not want to let go of its secrets. Imagine you're standing by the Gaspereau Bridge, twilight flattening the sights and sharpening every sound. This is the spot where so many stories end, or begin. The locals would tell you, nobody walks here after sundown. Yet here you are, a curious outsider or a stubborn friend, footsteps crunching old ballast. The rails glint, vanishing into murk. Behind you, dark water murmurs warnings. Ahead, only uncertainty. It's the summer of 1999, crisp with promise and carrying the echo of loss. Dion DJ Hillier and her friends, all youthful wanderers with battered backpacks and thrift store cameras, trek the corridor at dusk. DJ, raised in Moncton, has always felt the tug of the unknown, the hunger for discovery that makes parents worry and friends roll their eyes affectionately. Yet, on this night, it's not trouble she seeks, but color, spray paint. Gaspereau Bridge is famous for its graffiti, raw bursts of expression, hopes and memorials splattered on warped timbers. A few hours earlier, DJ's group is laughter and irreverence, huddled around a tinny Bluetooth speaker, feet dangling from a beam as local legend flows freely. They snap Polaroids, daub their initials with fluorescent green. There is a storm coming. The air brims with ions you can taste, wound tight with the anticipation of rain or something else. Someone suggests a dare, a tradition since youth. Cross the bridge after dark. Photograph your name. Leave proof. DJ's camera flashes once, twice, the click audible over the water's hiss. As the others pack to leave, she lingers back, aims for a close-up of a new streak. Live free or die trying, lettering so fresh the paint glistens. There's a brief, metallic hum, shrill and unnatural, that skips the ear and drills straight to the bone. That's the last anyone sees her. Her friends, incredulous at first, assume a prank. The search that unfolds through the night, shouts ringing, cell phones lighting the rails, yields only an eerie silence and the unblinking lens of her missing camera. News travels differently in small towns, by rumor, by radio, by phone trees that seem as ancient as the rails themselves. When word of DJ's vanishing spreads, old memories jolt awake. Stephen Amos, age 53, reads about it at his kitchen table. A retired teacher, history buff, and one-time skeptic turned quiet believer in patterns. He's been obsessed for years with the Dominion Atlantic's vanished telegraph posts, mapping each one with the meticulousness of a surveyor and the hope of an amateur detective.
For months, Stefan has walked the rails with a battered notebook, sketching relics, interviewing locals, convinced every detail is a clue. He's especially interested in the cluster of missing persons cases. Why in all these years doesn't anyone see or hear more? Why do personal effects, a remnant basket, a page, a pair of shoes, surface, while bodies and answers drift out of reach? Official accounts keep to dry facts, no evidence of foul play. But Stefan's notes tell a wilder story. Dog-eared pages filled with timelines, weather reports, diagrams of day and dusk along the Phantom Mile. He consults police reports, pored over at the station, or requested via FOI. He interviews RCMP officers, who give little away but listen longer than is typical. It's as if everyone wants the reassurance of routine, and yet nobody trusts routine here. In the spring of 2016, Stefan embarks again, one last mapping trip, so he claims to his skeptical daughter. It's overcast, the wind rising over the valley, as he steps along the rails, notebook in pocket, muttering measurements. Somewhere between mile marker 12 and 13, just north of Gaspereau, he seemingly vacates the world. His notebook is later found by a jogger, propped open against a telegraph stump. The last entry. Shadow at the crossing, faint ringing, train. No one sees him again. Pause now and picture yourself as a teenager, invincible, bored, craving legend. It's the spring of 2022, and social media is alive with tales of Nova Scotia's most haunted walk. Enter Liam McKay, 17, clever, impulsive, as hungry for thrills as the friends who egg him on. Messages fly, double dog dare, full mile after midnight. It's raining, not hard, but with the relentless drip of a storm that blurs the tree line and quilts the rails in gauzy light. Liam, undeterred, or maybe determined, tugs his hoodie tight, records a brief video for his friends. As the group cheers from the trailhead, he vanishes into the fog, phone light casting an eerie cone ahead. 10 minutes pass, then 20, no texts. Someone jokes that he's ghosting them, but worry gnaws. When they finally follow the line, they find only emptiness. Liam's sneakers, side by side on the tracks, point north. Next to them, a crumpled page from his ever-present notebook. I saw the light. The RCMP pieced together his path using cell data and clues, but the signal vanishes at the bridge, just as it had for others before. As dawn breaks, the valley is heavy with something unspoken. Fear, frustration, awe. Another missing. Another mystery without closure. These vanishings become more than local tragedy. They border on urban legend, a mystery so persistent it becomes a feature of the landscape. Podcast hosts, YouTubers, even amateur psychics flock to Kentville, hoping for a scoop,
or a shiver. The town's businesses quietly profit. Ghost tour brochures sell out fast. But for families, this influx brings only fresh grief. Reporters' questions reopening wounds decades old. Police hold community meetings in church basements where anxious parents ask about warning signs. What does a high-pitched metallic hum mean? Could it be electrical? Atmospheric? Engineers are brought in. Power lines are checked. No malfunctions, no evidence. Others point to the bridge itself, a crumbling relic with a history darker than forgotten sleepers. Its maintenance logs, unearthed by persistent journalists, show odd notes, warped wood despite no flooding, strange mineral deposits around the rails, birds refusing to nest nearby. Interviewed on record, a seasoned RCMP sergeant says, "It's like the land here's got its own laws. Things just stop making sense." Some theorize about electromagnetic fields, secret tunnels, hidden sinkholes. Still others invoke folklore. It's a threshold, a place not meant for staying. Each theory, plausible or wild, becomes part of the story. Let's pause here. Think of the weight of the unknown, of decades stretched taut by absence. Imagine being a parent like Mrs. McKay, Liam's mother, alternating between hope and dread, staring at a rain-blurred window night after night. Imagine being a friend, replaying every moment, every shout in the fog, questioning, what if I'd gone instead? What, if anything, can you do when a place refuses to give up its secrets? Community members carry these disappearances as communal scars. Old-timers debate the case in diners long after outsiders go home. Teachers reference the story as a cautionary tale. Police, privately, admit they keep files open, just in case. For some, the mystery is a warning. For others, a test. But the bridge, the rails, endure. Rows of steel vanishing into wilderness. Every year, as the anniversary of a disappearance draws near, someone leaves lilies on the bridge. No faces, no words, just silent remembrance. The news settles like a bruise. After Liam's disappearance, the town of Kentville is not the same. Search parties comb the woods until exhaustion blurs the border between hope and futility. Flyers with the faces of the lost bleach in the rain, markers for unanswered prayers. The old Dominion Atlantic is no longer just a rail line. It's become a magnet for fear, speculation, and even resentment. Imagine now you're a local RCMP constable. The radio crackles with reports, trespassers at night, paranormal investigators sneaking equipment through underbrush, teens daring each other in a reckless game. You find yourself stationed at the Gaspereau Bridge long past midnight, your flashlight's beam caught in the mist. It feels as though the place itself is watching you. Every snapping twig, every cold rush of wind puts your nerves on edge. Rumors run rampant. In diners, whispers curve around mugs of black coffee. It's human trafficking, you'll see. That rail corridor's perfect for it. It must be a serial predator. Look how spaced out those disappearances are. Waiting and watching. Saw lights on the bridge that night. Weather balloons or something else? The town fractures into camps. Some prime every theory on the malign workings of outsiders, transients, drifters, the so-called trouble from Halifax. Others squint at their own, quietly populating a mental ledger of those who acted odd at a community barbecue, who kept to themselves, whose alibi never quite lined up. Decades-old resentments bubble to the surface. Anyone who last spoke to a missing person is pored over by the press and their neighbors. Liam's friends, still teenagers themselves, are grilled for inconsistencies in their stories. DJ's family, seeking privacy, becomes wary of local media, especially after a podcast host uploads voice messages of DJ laughing on the tracks. No permission, just uploaded. Another injury. Even the families of the Ord cases, like Rosemary Parker, receive cryptic calls or letters, as if the mystery needs to reassert its hold. Meanwhile, outsiders feed on the shadows. Journalists pursue cold leads, creeping around town in rented cars. Paranormal enthusiasts fly drones at dawn, searching for spectral anomalies, then post grainy footage online. Lights flicker, shadows move, the comments fill with conspiracy. A true crime TV show arrives, promising to find the real answer, then leaves as mystified as everyone else. But the most skilled investigators remain the local mothers and widows who keep passing notes, logging strange vehicles spotted on the old railway road, cross-checking rumored sightings of newcomers. A secret Facebook group forms, attendance by invite only, where old suspicions and wild hopes are catalogued for the day anyone, gets closure.
There's a silence that grows in a town where too many are missing. Not the silence of peace, but of truths gone unspoken, of questions stifled in the throat. In Kentville, people begin to measure their lives against the railway. How far their homes lie from the tracks, how well they know their neighbors, what was said and left unsaid in the aftermath of vanishing. Old routines fracture. Children who once raced bikes along sun-dappled paths now take the long way home, steering clear of even glimpses of metal rails among the weeds. Teens, once eager for adventure, invent quieter dares. How long can you stand at the crossing before your own courage gives out? Parents coordinate nightly check-ins and take turns watching bedroom windows, as if proximity could stave off fate. Local businesses, grocery, hardware, the always busy diner, report a change that is hard to name but easy to feel. There are fewer travelers, fewer hikers asking for trail maps, fewer tourists taking the Scenic Rail Heritage brochure. Some find comfort in the slowdown. Others grieve for what's been lost. Openness, trust, the valley's reputation for generosity. At town hall meetings, voices rise and falter. Some argue for closing the corridor completely, fencing off the entire Phantom Mile, and posting warning signs, while others fear that acknowledging the danger will only make the legend grow. The mayor fields questions. Why haven't we brought in experts from outside? Why can't the government provide more resources? We're doing what we can, she insists, but everyone knows it's not enough. Rumors twist through the streets, that something is buried under the tracks, that an old crime binds the disappearances, that the land itself is claiming payment for old wounds. Historian volunteers dive into archives, scanning brittle microfilm for long-forgotten court cases, seeking patterns hidden in century-old obituaries. Some discover unsettling parallels, other towns with sudden clusters of vanishings, other haunted crossings, other lines where nothing grows. Yet facts remain stubborn. No new evidence, no confessions, no breakthroughs. The town's grief begins to fold in on itself, morphing into wariness, then outright suspicion. A stray dog or a lost wallet by the rails sparks frantic calls to the RCMP. Every late train whistle, every flicker of light in the woods, reignites rumors. The most haunting cost, those living closest to the missing. Rosemary Parker's old house, for decades filled with silence and preserved childhood things, is eventually cleared out by relatives who admit at last that hope is too heavy to carry. They find, tucked in a curling field guide, a list of places Rosemary still meant to explore, each one hauntingly close to where she was last seen. Other families quietly move away, unable to face the reminders at every dawn, every gust of wind rattling old window glass. Some stay, fiercely guarding what memories remain, vowing to never let the missing slip into myth. But even they feel it, as if the rails echo with steps that aren't there, voices that almost, but never quite, break through. Through all of this, the railway endures. A scar on the landscape, a riddle made of steel and sorrow. The legend grows, not just online or in late-night moans, but in how Kentville breathes, in the doors that now stay locked, in the glances traded at the line's edge. The cost is measured not just in those who disappeared, but in all the ways those left behind are changed, bound by mystery, haunted by what they can't explain, and unable, still, to turn away. Imagine you're standing at the Gaspereau Bridge long after midnight. No moon, only mist, the rails cold under your palm. For the first time, an outsider, a filmmaker, a detective, maybe even you, crosses the phantom mile without backup. You listen as the world shrinks to fog and distant water, every footstep echoing back stories that never found their ending. Suddenly, a metallic hum vibrates up through the rails, sharper than wind, more certain than folklore. Shadows flicker, first doubt, then possibility. Is that a figure, a reflection, or the past itself bleeding through? You raise your phone, trying to record, but electronics glitch and freeze. The hum rises, and as you step closer to the bridge's center, there, faint but real, a movement in the fog. Someone's silhouette. It's gone in a flash. You call out. The only answer, the distant echo of a voice you can't quite place, a voice that sounds like someone you lost. For a moment, you feel both hope and dread, and then only silence. In the days that follow, the town holds its breath. A new search brings neither answers nor closure. Every approach to the bridge yields the same. A broken device, muddy footprints, another layer of mystery. But one thing emerges, caught on a drone camera, overlooked until a grieving mother reviews the footage, frame by frame. The faintest shape, standing where the rails vanish into mist, holding what looks like a field notebook in their hand. It could be anyone, or anything. The town explodes in debate. A survivor, a ghost, or just a trick of the light. Officials, pressed for answers, quietly admit they've exhausted every logical avenue. The files, once thick with suspicion, are stamped and shelved. Kentville moves on, but never truly moves past what happened out on those rails. Some believe the truth is close. Patterns in vanishings tied to unmarked graves or lost railway workers. Others think it's nature itself, asserting boundaries lost to time and human ambition. But to the families, the Parkers, Hilliers, McKays, and all those who wandered the mile, the mystery endures in dreams, in anniversaries marked by lilies on a lonely bridge, names murmured into foggy dawns. And to those who linger on the edge of myth and memory, the lesson is simple. There are places in the world that will not yield their secrets, no matter how many come searching. Decades later, the Dominion Atlantic's rails echo with stories, some rooted in grief, others in hope. Locals remind newcomers to respect the land, to walk gently, and to remember. Absence is not the same as forgetting. For every disappearance, countless acts of kindness ripple outward, searches, vigils, moments of shared sorrow binding a community forever changed. The mystery remains unsolved. Is that a failure, or does it reveal something deeper? That some truths are too large for answers, that some places resist explanation, and that closure is not always the reward for searching. How would you live if your loved one vanished without reason? How do you guard against despair or honor what you cannot know? Sometimes, the only choices are to remember, to be cautious, and to keep believing that one day, the phantom mile might finally speak.
Don't forget to subscribe to Real Mystery Reports for more strange, dark, and profoundly human stories. New true mysteries every day.